This story, just in, tops tonight's Eyewitness News. A sad ending to the case of a woman missing for nearly a year and a half. Warren County, Pennsylvania authorities tonight confirmed that remains found yesterday in a ravine near Lander, Pennsylvania, are indeed those of Kathy Wilson of Jamestown.
Just imagine this. Children were playing in the woods in Lander when they come across what they thought were animal bones and realize this is human. I'm Maki Becker.
And I'm Rhiannon Browning, and this is Voices of the Voiceless.
We're diving into unsolved cases around Western New York. For this episode, we are going to talk about the unsolved murder case of Kathy Wilson. Okay, so this happened 38 years ago, May 18th, 1988. She was 33 years old at the time. She was a mother of 3 young children. She lived in Jamestown. She had a job. She worked at a company called James Schwab, and it was a printing company in Falconer. This is what we know about the day she disappeared. She went to work, said goodbye to her husband. She went to lunch. What they know is she parked her van, like in the mall parking lot, and she disappeared. Now that was what we knew before. We're learning a lot more about that now. What the investigators believe is that she was violently abducted from that parking lot and then taken to Lander, Pennsylvania, which is a few miles away. And she was held at a location in Lander, Pennsylvania for a considerable amount of time. And then she was murdered. And then her body was dumped in the woods in Lander, Pennsylvania. Now, what we know from when she disappeared, nobody knew what had happened to her. And it was, there was a lot of, alarm. Like she was reported, her husband reported her missing right away. She doesn't disappear like that. They found her van, something about 1:30 in the morning after, and that was in the parking lot. So that was one of the clues. Sometime after that, they find her purse. Her keys are found in an alley in Jamestown. So there are all these like weird little pieces coming together. But it took over a year. It was really the September of the following year. Just imagine this. Children were playing in the woods in Lander when they come across what they thought were animal bones, an animal skull, but they took it to the adult. The adults eventually come and look at it and realize this is human, and very quickly through dental records they're able to confirm that it's Kathy Wilson. Rhiannon and I got a chance to go down to Lander, Pennsylvania with the cold case investigators. That's investigator Tom Tarpley and Lieutenant Alex Nutt of the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office. So we drove into Lander to go to where Kathy Wilson's remains were found. We drove way down into Chautauqua County. What struck you about that drive and where she was found?
I mean, okay, so getting out there was a trek, right? Like that's, you're going out to Jamestown from Buffalo. It's not horrible.
Yeah, it's an easy drive.
It was the fact that we went from there to even where her purse was found. We're getting out there, and I'm like, okay, this is taking a bit, and then it's like, oh, there's more.
Yeah.
Like you're going out there. This person or the people, the suspect, had to have gone far. I mean, it was remote.
Right.
There were. Oddly enough, there were some cars that day, but I think it was a Friday and whatever, nice day. There weren't houses. It was woods and like the quiet.
Right. It's a dirt road in the middle of the country, right? And I thought it was really interesting, like exactly where we were, what Tom Tarpley was saying in terms of like where you could see cars coming. You could hear it and see it coming.
It really is the perfect spot to dispose of a body because your chances of being seen and your chances of any type of, discovery are absolutely, minimal here. You could park a vehicle right here, and you're going to hear or you're going to see vehicles coming, and then once you get that body out of a vehicle, no one's going to see you, particularly, like I said, if there's more foliage on the trees, which there probably was.
It's like, was that a planned location
Right.
to leave her, and is that a clue too?
Right.
Location's so important in these cases.
And so you mentioned how they know where she was held down, and it's interesting because where her remains were found. I mean, it was off this dirt road. It was in the woods. But if you're looking above, right, there really isn't any there. I didn't see many houses or
there's some,
but
there's some. Yeah, it's remote.
So it's like, was she brought to? Were her remains brought to this location from even further away? I mean,
they're talking about a place inlander,
right,
somewhere else. I don't know the proximity, but I think that's going to be a huge part of this case. What was interesting was that there were arrests made, and it went to trial.
Yeah, I got to speak to the son of one of the men who were tried.
Jay Buckley is my father, and it's just been too long, and everybody still thinks he did it. Like to see his name cleared. Obviously, I want to see justice for Kathy's family as well, and everything needs to come to the light. I'm not gonna lie, he wasn't the greatest person when he was younger, but he was a thief. He wasn't a murderer, a rapist.
What the cold case detectives on this investigation told us is that these two guys, they were burglars.
People who were involved in crimes, and they got rounded up and they were charged, went on trial. Well, what's interesting, right, is charges were just dismissed against one, and the other, the jury found them not guilty. And from everything investigators know now, yeah, they were right. The jury was right. They should not have been charged. There's someone else out there who committed these crimes. When there is an arrest, when there is a trial, in everybody's head, you get this sense that, it's solved. So people kind of turn off their brains about that case. Yeah, tunnel vision. Oh yeah, they took care of that. The thing is, it wasn't. It was all wrong. And there probably are people out there who did see something suspicious, maybe thought they had a tip that they wanted to share with the authorities, but then they don't, because they're like, oh, no, they already solved it, so I was probably wrong.
You said that there's a new witness.
Yeah, so there are some huge developments. There's momentum in this case. So a couple of years ago, the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office started this cold case unit. They got some extra money. There were two detectives. It was Tom Tarpley and Tom DeZino. Tom DeZino has since retired, but Tom Tarpley still very much going strong on this case. A couple of years ago, I actually got to go with the two Toms. That started some developments. There's some big ones happening now. There seems to be real momentum. I got a chance to talk to Mark Wilson. That is Kathy Wilson's husband. He was very open with me, and we talked actually on what would be 38 years to the day that authorities believe she was abducted. And he shared with me some things he's learned about the case.
She was violently abducted from the Chautauqua Mall parking lot.
Which is a horrifying thing to think. This would have been in broad daylight. She went at lunchtime, right? She parks her van, and then what they believe is there was another van. We know that authorities are asking about another van that was seen right next to it. And then what Mark Wilson told me is that they now believe there is an eyewitness to this abduction. So this mom who's at the mall in the middle of the day is grabbed from the parking lot. Now I don't know why. We don't know what this was all about.
And we don't know how many people.
That's a great question. Yeah. Is it one? Is it a group? I mean, sounds like something that would be difficult to do with one person. I don't know. I mean, she was she was by herself, so I don't know. But so, what they do believe is that she was then taken from there to this location, some sort of house building in Lander, Pennsylvania. Now, here's another thing that we have learned, that authorities know, they believe they know where this location was. And they know who the owner was. And what I'm being told is that they know the connection, they know that there's some sort of connection to another business of some sort in Russell, Pennsylvania. And here's the really kind of interesting detail. They also believe there's a connection to the place where she worked, which is James R. Schwab, which is some sort of printing business. Okay. So that's where she worked. She had left there from lunch. Now, I don't know what that means, but there are some sort of connections between where she's taken and where she worked. Obviously, these are things that the investigators are going to be very, very interested in. Mark also told me about some really disturbing details, and I don't know what to make of them. But Mark and his children are now adults, and pretty recently, so working with the Chautauqua investigators, with Tom, they're also working with the Pennsylvania authorities. Now, remember, this was a case that was, because her remains were found in Pennsylvania, this was tried in Pennsylvania. And what they're learning was that there was a real tug of war about who had jurisdiction over what. And, I've seen this in other cases where they may not be great at sharing. And this is also before the digital age, right? Mm-hmm. Everything's on paper, these are my files, these are your files. I think things are very much done differently. And definitely now, there's a lot more cooperation going on. And Mark said that he went down to Pennsylvania and talked with the state police. And they learned two really, really disturbing things. So when Kathy Wilson's remains were found, they set aside some of them for the purposes of evidence, right? This was right when DNA and things like that were starting to become part of the investigative process. So it made sense, like, okay, some of her, and the family had agreed to this, would be kept for evidence purposes. And, she was, the rest of her was buried properly. So apparently 18 years ago, for unknown reasons, the remains that the Pennsylvania State Police had were destroyed.
They destroyed it. They didn't tell us. They don't know why. They don't know how. They don't know where. They can't tell us these answers. We are a family of faith. Obviously, we would like to have at least a memorial service to where Kathy's remains were destroyed.
What do they mean? Like, what destroyed?
Like thrown away, like burned, or they're just gone. Certainly, this happens with like old file. If it's a if it's just like solved after a certain amount of time, you can't keep everything forever,
right?
But this was an unsolved case.
Yeah,
this is not.
That's her remains.
It remains. It should have just why not just return it to the family, or for whatever reason. And Mark and his family were so upset to learn about that. And of course, they had lost so much already, and the way she was found too. She was skeletal remains, and then for it to be done like this. So I think that was a really, really upsetting thing to learn. And it's weird too. There's something just very
odd. Yeah.
It's odd. It's
doesn't seem right. Doesn't seem like that's something that you could just do with it being
it's
open case. It's
right. It's sloppy.
Yes.
At best, right? And then they also find out something that doesn't make sense, that there were 2 separate death certificates that were that were filed in Pennsylvania, in 2 different places in Pennsylvania regarding Kathy Wilson.
We found out that there were 2 death certificates issued.
What?
Yes, one by the coroner in Warren County, Pennsylvania, and one that was different, that was filed with the Department of Health in the state capital of Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. This is in the process of being rectified, but nobody's given us any answers as to why. Why were there 2 different death certificates?
I don't know what to make of that, but that's also weird. There are all these kind of like weird things that they've discovered. Now, Mark Wilson was really, he wanted, to make sure people understood. The people working on it now are working on it really diligently. He has faith in them. They are doing what he wishes was done before, frankly. And he, he's very hopeful. He's very hopeful that something will be done, that there will be justice, and maybe even soon.
Yeah, and it seems like right now they're getting close to something. It seems like there's something building.
There's momentum.
Yeah.
There's definitely momentum, I think. And, as I've been covering this, and you've joined me, every time we do something on this story, new leads have been popping up on this. And it's taken the investigators into all sorts of different directions.
It's like these breadcrumbs, like...
Sure.
Her keys are in one spot. Her remains are in another spot. Her purse is in this spot. She was held in another spot.
Right.
Why? It's...
Well, it sounds like someone who's trying to throw the authorities off, right? Like they're trying to, red herrings all over the place. And it is amazing, the things you can do now. And it's everything we know about DNA, like what DNA can identify. It's not just even the person. You can find a relative, a distant relative that can help you triangulate who somebody is. But just social media, right? YouTube, TV, print. There's so many other ways to get information out and for people to hear about it. And I think this is such an interesting part of what we can do when we're talking about these cases, that this isn't just like, oh, isn't this an interesting cold case? This is all part of the process of possibly solving these cases. And it really hit me, I'm sure you saw this too, by like, there are people, this is still causing trauma.
Yep.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? You have, Mark Wilson still mourns his wife. Now, 10 years after, she passed, he did remarry, and they had a wonderful life together, and she really, passed away from an illness a couple of years ago. But he still has a picture of Kathy. He's got 3 kids who didn't get to have their mom for so many things. They're still mourning. There's all this, and then there's the lives of those men who were accused of this heinous murder, who didn't do it.
When we're talking about what they need in this case right now, what they need in this investigation, I think the biggest thing is getting the word out there so that people come forward, right? Like, let's spark your memory. Your memory.
Right.
Were you there that day and then you saw something weird at the Chautauqua Mall?
Right.
Or did you pass by a van and you were like, there's probably somebody out there that could remember something.
Maybe someone confided in that person, and maybe that person has passed away, or they're maybe they're old enough now and they're facing death and know maybe it's time to come clean. Time changes things, or maybe you're not scared anymore to come forward. What did you take away in terms of like why it's important to still do this?
So what I gathered from this is it's to bring justice to not only the victim but the family, and there are so many, unfortunately, women. These are horrific, sad cases that are just unsolved. These are women that had families, that had, you know, lives ahead of them, and it was just their lives were just ripped away from them just immediately, and it's sad, and I think the biggest thing right now is just to finally get some answers for them and for the families, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I mean, Kathy Wilson should be a grandma right now. You know, she should be taking care of cute little grandkids. You know, it doesn't matter that it's been 38 years. It still needs to be solved, right?
Tom and I have these, investigator Tarpley and I have these conversations all the time, and he's always very passionate to remind me that these folks deserve justice, and these cases have to be victim focused, and Kathy Wilson did not deserve what happened to her.
Who was Kathy Wilson?
A mom. Her kids were, I think, 5, 8, and 13 at the time. She worked. She had this job at Schwab. But she was very involved with the kids.
She taught Sunday school. She volunteered for charitable organizations. She was the whole package.
I mean, he talked about how they were always busy with the kids, you know, quintessential soccer mom, right? She was always making sure everything was organized, like, all right, we have to get the kids to this event, and it was all, you know, she would write it out and put it on the fridge, right? And they had their routine down, and it was sweet. He said that they were part of an adult soccer league too. Like that was something they were trying to do together. You know, Mark, very stand-up man. He went to West Point. You know, just a very just a really nice, very gentlemanly person who, you know, who talked about Kathy with a lot of love. I mean, just said, you know, she was the total package. She was beautiful. She had this beautiful blonde, you know, the 80s hair. I mean, you could just, you know, like perfect 80s hair, and was very devoted to her children, and was just a lovely person, and you know, it didn't deserve this. I mean, it is, what happened to her is heinous, and maybe soon we'll see justice.
I mean, if anybody has any information, or if they know of something, or something jogs their memory, how can they contact? Who can they contact?
Okay, they like Tom Tarpley wants to hear from you, and we'll give you the email. It's and you can reach out that way. And look, you know, you can send the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office an anonymous letter if that's what you want to do. You can reach out to us if you want, right? You know, whatever. They're people know things. They are looking for any kind of tech. Now, the latest, they're really interested in finding out anything about this van. And here's an image of this of what they think the van looked like. So Kathy Wilson parked her van in the parking lot, and they believe there was this other van next to it, and they're looking for people who may have seen it there on that day, or seen it around the Chautauqua Mall around that time, or know somebody in that area who had a van that looked like that. And the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office would very much like to speak to you. You know, we will certainly keep you updated. I know every time we do something on the story, this does create new leads. So I have a feeling we'll be updating, you know, hopefully soon. But yeah, this is our first episode.
I wanted to close out this first episode by saying, we plan on covering many cases across Western New York. There are so many that are unsolved, and it's so sad, and we want to bring justice to the victims and their families. And if you have a case that that you want us to cover, if you have something that you want to share with us, you can email our newsroom, and we'll leave all of the contact information in the episode. Comment whatever anonymously, whatever you want to share with us. If you have any information on this case, please.
This case or any case, please feel free to reach out. From our reel, I already got one.
You did?
Yeah. Someone was like, "Do you know anything about this case?" And that's, it is incredibly upsetting to hear about how many unsolved cases.
So many.
That are out there, and if we bring some light to it, bring voices to the voiceless, right? Maybe we can do something about it. What would it mean to you to finally see justice?
Do you know what it's like to not breathe for 40 years? To have the wind taken out of your sails? It would mean everything, but it's all for, Kathy's, her parents have unfortunately passed, but her sisters, they need to know. She has a large family, and we all need to know. Everybody who just even knew Kathy briefly, they need to know, and it would just mean the world.